Hello, Antonio. Hello, Ryan. Bodhi. How we all doing? Hey, hope everyone's doing well. Getting all cozied up for another Whip Wednesday. At least I hope so. So yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm properly prepped this time. So, got a bunch of cool stuff to look at as well. How many do we have this time? I think it's 12. 15. So it's gonna be a long session again. I'll see if I can make it like shorter. At least a little bit. We'll see what we can do with it. Is it warm in the UK? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Like yesterday was really nice. Yesterday it was really, really nice. Today it's a little bit worse than yesterday, but it's still nice. It's still like nice weather. Yeah, I've got no clue. I also don't keep an eye, like a check on the weather or something like that, so got no clue what's coming. I'm totally in the blind. Hi Theo! Good to see you here. How's it going there? It's going well. Had a good day at work. Stopped early because I'm trying to do that on Wednesday. Then called my mom. Then we had dinner, chilled out for a little bit, and then I just did like some other busy work that needed to be done because we're moving soon. So we're trying to get everything prepped and organized and all that kind of stuff. So moving again, and then hopefully we can stay in one place for a long time. So yeah, that's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to it. Especially because everything now is still in boxes, right? And it's just like, it's just awkward. Like, we have to constantly look through boxes and stuff to find our stuff. So, I'm hoping that once we get settled, we can just go back to the way we were. Especially with looking for clothing. Like, clothing is still like in big bags, so it's just like annoying. Hey Harsh! Happy to have you here. How are you doing? We're gonna get started in a little bit. Oh! Antonio just gave a nice suggestion to change it. Yeah, that's actually a good point. I didn't even know that that was a thing there. Okay. We'll have to change that up. Yeah, we need a cool background like before. What do you mean? Is my blank background with my NAS drive not like enticing enough? Come on. It's just like a little bit of a garden, you know? Got some flowers coming in. Moving seems to be pretty tough, but interesting. This one was actually not too bad. Like, this move from like Berlin to the UK was actually not too bad. The other ones that we had were rough. Especially the second one. That one was pure chaos. I'm not even sure how we made it through that, but yeah, because we basically went from like an Airbnb. I can't remember how it was. It was so chaotic. We went from like an Airbnb to another Airbnb to like another long-term rental, and then we finally found our apartment. Oh. And I think there was like a hotel in there somewhere, but we didn't end up staying. But I did pay, and we didn't have like a cancellation policy, so we just lost the money that we paid for the hotel. Yeah, it was all fun. Ugh. Hey, right one. Yet another room in the mansion. No, this is the same room. This is not new. It's the same one. It would be crazy to move my setup every time I stream. It would be nuts. Years ago, I was moving my whole house in a bicycle. That was pain. Yeah. Yeah. It is tough. Is it flipped? No. Oh. Oh. Wait. Hold up. Let me test something. It is flipped. You are right. Let's flip back. It is flipped. I didn't even realize that I had to set it up. Set it up like that. You already had the chance of meeting Mr. Gengler? What? Gengler? I don't even know what that is supposed to be. Tim with all the mansions. Yeah. But big boy Tim over here. Shit. What's his name again? Yeah. I'm Tim Buffett, right? That's who I am. Like famous investor. That's why I have all these mansions. Mansions. No wonder he's working at playgrounds voluntarily. Yeah. Don't tell him. Don't tell him. You have a vegetable patch? No. This is like a temporary thing. So it's just like a small garden. I do wanna get something set up in a new garden though. I think that's gonna be good. I also wanna get like my hydroponic setup back because that would be awesome. I'll have to figure out a new one though. I wanna make some improvements and make like a version 2.0. Midway Gangler? He went to one of our workshops. He also works at playgrounds. Oh, no. Doesn't ring a bell. I mean, I still need to meet a lot of people. We actually had like a nice event today, or like a little social thingy where you just like get paired up with like random people and then we just get to talk. It was nice. Where did we buy a BE hoodie? So, more recently, a lot of people have been asking me about this. So, it seems that it's about time that I do like a proper design for it and then make them available to anyone. I think it's about time that probably what we'll do, we'll move first. We're going to start there. Then I'm going to get my bearings with everything, right? Because there's still a lot of stuff that's on my back catalog that I need to get through. And then I'll have a look into like the merch shop again. Yeah, I did have to announce my arrival at the whole company. That was yeah, that was great. I love doing that. They all know me, right? Well, at least the ones that were paying attention. But yeah, I don't know a lot of people yet. But it's growing. The circle of people that I get to meet is growing over time. It's only been a week as well, right? Gotta give it some time. The ego. Everyone knows me. No, it's like if you're honest about it, right? Like in those kind of meetings, like only 30% like really pay attention, and then 10% maybe replies, and then yeah, so it's highly unlikely. Especially with so many people joining as well. I think there were like three people in total on the day that I joined. So Shadan, welcome to the community. Thanks for the sub. DB okay, let's get away from this. I don't like this whole conversation anymore, okay? Jeez. Yeah, I definitely don't like where this is going. So, we're going to be talking about some feedback. Should we do this one or the other one? Not sure. I feel like the other one gets a little pixelaty. Anyways, as always, this is our weekly time slot where we just get to talk about the work that people have been doing, and whenever people want feedback, they can basically tag their work on our Discord, and then I get to review it live on stream. It is unfortunately too late to post your whip because I do prep for the stream. So unfortunately, it is too late for this whip for the stream. But I can definitely have a look at like an updated one next week though. Would be happy to do that, Tuturo. I'll wait for the hoodie. Yeah. I gotta be honest, like, it's also like a good stress test for me because I've been wearing them for like a couple of years now, so I know that they can last and that they're cozy and all that kind of stuff. I have a couple of different ones that I was trying out, and there's definitely like some things that are like wrong with them. So yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. But if there's any questions, any remarks, anything that you want to bring up as I'm going through people's work, feel free to do that, and then we can chat about it as well. But without further ado, let's have a look at our first person here. We're gonna start with Theo. Let's have a look at Theo. I think with Theo, it was just more like, hey, I'm getting ready to post this. It would be nice to get like some final remarks in. What do you think? Let's have a look. Just waiting for Wednesday for any last feedbacks. I hope you'll enjoy. Open to any other feedbacks. Cool. First of all, I love the little render that we have going on here. It's nice. I would honestly, like, this reminded me so much on like these very stereotypical like American like TV shops where you have the shop front and it's just like stacks and stacks of TVs, right? Like the stack behind it with like the sign on it, like just reminded me of that kind of setup. Could be an interesting idea for a presentation. I don't know if you want to change it all that much. The rest is looking nice though. I had a quick look before the stream already. Yeah, really nice. Honestly, the only thing that I could say, or like that really struck me in the beginning, was just like the screen. It kind of feels that the screen itself, or like the glass, right? The glass itself feels low res. It probably won't show that well on the stream, but like I don't know what it was, like comparing it to like the other texture details, like it felt like that one wasn't like proportionate to like all the other texture details. Also maybe like the fingertips, it's kind of a weird one, right? Because you have actually some great, let's see, you actually have some great reference, right? And I feel like the fingertips are too small for the way that you're holding the whole thing as well. Like I would expect them to be bigger as well. So, because it is weird, but like that's one thing if you're gonna use this sort of angle, right? The fingertips are something that are like directly relatable to people when it comes to scale of something, right? So that's why I am bashing on these fingerprints. And there's also just like, there's just the one set. It kind of feels weird when there's just like one set of fingerprints. I would kind of love to see like more swipes and like different kind of things with fingerprints rather than just having like the one set. Because it kind of hints at like people grabbing it, right? But they'll probably hold it with like two hands and like they'll have it at like different angles and all that kind of stuff. But that's all. That's about it, honestly. Think about like the way that you're gonna present this, right? Think about your breakdowns. Right, like break this down. With wireframe. If you want like more specific details on this, like watch probably any portfolio review where I talk about like the presentation of things, right? But in short, it's wireframe, poly counts, and then just the textures. Wireframe, poly count, textures with context, right? So that you have, this is your presentation, you have the asset here, and then you have like your textures like right next to it so that we can see how you use the textures, right? The way that you do this, the way that you lay it out, completely up to you. But yeah, always try to have the breakdowns when it comes to the context of things, because that makes it just like way more relatable. Yeah, that's about it. Would Sketchfab be a good way to show the wireframe? I would not do it on Sketchfab because it's highly unlikely that a lot of people will visit Sketchfab. The best way to do it is just like all in stills, right? Well, not all. You could have like a video and then like all your stills and then do the breakdown in stills as well, right? Because you have to think about it from a recruiter's perspective, right? A recruiter or art manager or whoever's going to be looking at your portfolio. They might be watching like, I'm not going to say a number, right? But they might be watching like a massive amount of portfolios a day. Whenever you do something where they have to click like a couple of times to get to what they want to see, they will probably not do it anyway, right? Same for Marmoset Toolbag, right? It takes a while for it to be booted up. That's a time waster. If it doesn't open like immediately, I think you lose like 50% of the people already. I myself never click on a Marmoset Toolbag or a Sketchfab file unless I already know that I kind of am really interested in the person and we potentially want to hire them, and then I'll dig deeper. So then I'll look at like the Marmoset or the Sketchfab or something like that, right? So it's not necessarily a bad idea to have it, but I wouldn't rely on it as the only way of showing your poly count or your wireframe. That's the way that I would look at it. There's also another thing. I don't know if this is still relevant. It probably is, but it's really easy to rip your models from anything online. So be careful with that too. Sketchfab, and I think it was Sketchfab dominantly, but Marmoset as well. They had a lot of issues with security where people would just like rip your assets and then just sell them. So that's probably still a thing because that's really hard to combat. Yeah, be careful with that too. So more of a video or pictures? Yes. I think a video is really good at just like wowing people, right? And if you then want to do a breakdown, make it a really short video or a GIF where it just like flips through things. But you don't have to do that. You can just stick with like a well laid out picture. So how you present it is totally up to you. Right, but I would always think about like, okay, what is the easiest way for people to consume what I'm trying to show them? That's always a way to think about it, right? Especially for a portfolio. Noted. Thanks a lot. No worries. Awesome work, by the way. Like I said before, I love the presentation. You have some really cool like detail shots as well. If you then spice it up with like a main shot as well, where we see the whole thing, maybe like front and back or something like that, or like a little, it doesn't have to be much, right? Whatever you're gonna do, like just really sell it. Yeah, awesome work, Theo. Great job. Looking forward to final thing, final post. Next up, we're gonna jump over to Khan. And I think Khan got a little bit confused with the posts on Discord because this is like a new thread. So yeah. Just as like a side note for Khan specifically, or people that have threads on our Discord, right? Like try to keep them in one single thread, so then it's easier for us to look at like the progress that you've made and get like additional context if needed. But all that aside, let's have a look. Love to hear some feedback on this. I've attached the references as well. Use 3 tileable materials, 6 variations of the wand boxes, all of them on a single 4K. Where the books use 1 atlas, what can I improve in this scene? For the lighting, I want to have cinematic lighting with god rays coming from the outside, which is different from the reference. You could do that, but I don't think it's needed, right? Because this is like a set image, right? So you actually already have like a light source that is kind of meant to shine a lot of light on the thing that people want to focus on, right? So the focus is going to be here because that's going to be the brightest spot in the scene, and it's actually like well lit with like natural light. I think honestly, if you just replicate this, you're onto a winner. Whenever you're adding like god rays, right? Like let's say you have like lots of god rays coming in. There's a lot of windows, so you're gonna have lots of god rays coming in. It's gonna diffuse like where people are gonna look, and you also still have the light here, right? So think about it in those terms. Like don't try to add too many light sources, because that's gonna confuse like where people are gonna look, right? So if you were to do something with god rays, right, I would remove the main light in your scene and have all the light coming from like the god rays. Maybe even do something with curtains, right, so that it allows you to like limit the amount of sun that's coming in, so that maybe all of this is blocked off, and then you only have like a god ray coming in here, or like light coming in here, that does the same thing as the original light in the set does, right? But try to keep it simple. Don't try to do too many things in one go. Yeah, I'll add some of those like notes here as well. So yeah, curtains, because they're a really effective way of just like containing the amount of light that comes in, right? And allows you to like play around with like the light. And yeah, what you could also do is compare, right? Have the one that you have here, and then compare it to the one that you're gonna build with like the god rays coming in. Compare the two, see which one has like a like a more defined focal point, and pick that one. There are ways that you can make like the god rays work. You just have to think about like creative solutions whenever it gets too spread out or gets too chaotic in your scene. Because yeah, let's say if you only do like one god ray coming from the door, that's going to look unrealistic because the rest of it is going to be glass as well, right? So people are going to expect a lot of light coming in through like the other ways as well. But yeah, there's creative ways that you can solve that. So I'll kind of let you do your thing first, and then we can kind of see what comes out of it. Let's have a look. What was some of the other stuff? For lighting, I want to do cinematic. Yep, we read that already. There was one thing that really stood out to me. Again, it's about focus, like drawing the focus in, right? It kind of goes back to like the same point here, but keep your colors in check. I know that maybe at this point you haven't really done like a color pass yet, but like what makes this like a really interesting scene is that it's like very monotonous in the way that it's kind of laid out, right? You kind of have like the center point with like the light, but there's not that much color coming in apart from maybe like the lamp here, right? We kind of zoom in a little bit. It's very desaturated when it comes to it. And if we then compare that to what you have going on, there's a lot more chaos because you have a lot more contrast between the colors as well, right? So if we look at the wall, for example, look at this wall, like there's like organization happening, and also the colors, they deviate, but they don't deviate too much. Whereas in your scene, there's a lot of deviation happening, and it makes it like way more chaotic feeling, right? So you have like these brighter colors and then these like really dark colors right next to each other, and it's kind of trying to like pull you in a little bit. What I did like that you did though is that I think you realized that was happening at a certain point. So what you did is you made your light stronger and you went for like a more of a nighttime scene, right? So we're getting like a more cozy vibe, but we're also getting more focus around the focal point. That's why you gotta be careful with like how much you're gonna add with those god rays coming in as well. So yeah, those are like the main things that I wanted to bring up, especially the colors, right? Like the colors of the boxes. But again, I'm really curious to see whenever you're gonna do like any post-processing on this. What I would advise, if this is like your first time doing post-processing, again, I have no idea if it's your first, but look into LUT. Really easy way. You can take a screenshot in Unreal. You can take that into Photoshop with like a LUT texture. And then you do like all your adjustments that you want to do. You make it look like nice and cinematic. And then you take that texture with like all the adjustment layers on top of it back into Unreal. And like Unreal will have the same sort of look that you try to replicate in Photoshop. Really cool way of doing that. Because sometimes the post-processing in Unreal can get like really overwhelming for people that are quite new to it. So that would be like a tip that I'll give as well. Look into that. Unreal Engine has like a whole page about like LUTs and how to set it up and like where to find a texture, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I would point you towards as well. I'm gonna keep it to that, Con. I will send the update in the Discord. And best of luck. You're making some really cool progress, by the way, even though it's like a bit more tricky to find. I had a look at like your previous thread. And you're making some good progress, right? I think it's gonna get to a point now where like you kind of need to define like what your post-processing is gonna look like and what kind of cinematic lighting you want to start infusing, right? Because if you look at the original, that is also cinematic lighting, right? It doesn't have to be with god rays to make it more cinematic necessarily, right? Best of luck. Looking forward to the next update. Bodhi is asking, regarding portfolio, do you send the community link from ArtStation or the website link when applying? Because I've seen you prefer to look at the community page. Oh, okay. So that's a good question, Bodhi. So the way that it's currently structured is that I'm only doing the community ones, and then people that apply through the website, they get put in like the back of the catalog. So if you want to get your portfolio reviewed, put it in portfolio reviews on the actual community. So yeah. Forward to seeing updates. Yeah! Yeah, right. Me too. Okay, I think we got a quick one here from Sebastian. This is more like a question and troubleshooting kind of thing. Oh, Bodhi, sorry for the job. You sent the community link from ArtStation? Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you mean. No, community link from ArtStation, because I'll give you an example. I don't know if I have an example, actually. I'm sure that I can find like a quick one. Let's have a look. I don't know if I have a quick one, actually. Yeah, so, for example, we'll take a look at this one, right? Real quick deviation. If someone sends me this portfolio, right? I'm not talking about like the quality of, well, this link, right? I'm not talking about like the quality of the work or anything like that. It is just the layout, the way that everything has been laid out. With this personal website, everyone can kind of make their own template, right? Which means that I can land on Sora's portfolio here, and I can then look at the next portfolio, and it might look different in the way that they're structured, right? What I will do, and I assume that a lot of recruiters do this as well, because I've seen other people that are like in recruitment do this a lot, is they will look for this button straight away. Because this is familiar, right? This is what we're used to seeing, and it's going to be the same for everyone. So I almost feel that like paying for a subscription where you can add your own portfolio website to it, I know it's like included in like Pro or whatever, but it's kind of a waste of time. So I would always just send them like the straight up ArtStation website. I think if you want to get into it, right? Like if you want to get into like the more specifics, the only time where I would like share my own website is because you have a lot of experience and you know that at a certain point ArtStation is not going to be ArtStation anymore and there's going to be the hot new thing that people are jumping onto, right? And you just want to get rid of that and you just want like your own thing where you like you're just detached from everything and you don't care about like the social media nature of ArtStation or anything like that. But if you have your work only on the web and not in ArtStation, if you have it only on the web and it's not as fluid as ArtStation, then it sucks. Straight up. Like you're doing yourself a disservice if you have your own website and it's not as good as ArtStation or better. Pro sub on ArtStation is cool for analytics and blogging in my opinion. Blogging is decent. The analytics, I think honestly we get too carried away in it. What are you realistically gonna do with analytics, right? Like you're gonna see who like watched your portfolio and hope that they reach out, because you can't really reach out to them and tell them that like, hey, I was looking at my analytics, like nice to talk, because that's awkward as hell, right? But if you have your work on the ArtStation web and not in ArtStation, that might be a specific use case, but I don't know why you would do that. I think the only... Well, you can't lock it. I don't think ArtStation allows you to lock things behind a password, right? It doesn't go that far, I think. I don't know. If it's more specific, there might be a use case for someone, right? But I can guarantee you, most people that if we have a look at like portfolios, like we always look for the ArtStation website or like the ArtStation link itself if we land on like a website like that. Yeah, well, I use analytics only to know if recruiters come to see it. As a junior, it's kind of hard sometimes to know if it's the portfolio or the CV that doesn't work. Yeah, but I also feel like you can lock things behind a password. Okay. I use analytics only to know if recruiters come to see it. As a junior, it's kind of hard to know sometimes if the portfolio or the CV does that work. Yeah, but even if you use analytics, you can't really track where the source of the traffic comes from, right? So you can't see who went through your portfolio or who went through your CV, or has that been updated since? Because if that happens, then I can see the value in it. But if you just see like who viewed your portfolio and you can't really see where they come from, then yeah, you still don't know at that point, right? But let's have a look here. We're gonna jump into the next one. Keep asking questions, right? I'll pick up some questions during the chat as well. We need to keep the party going though. So, I don't quite understand how to get a result equal or similar to the reference. I tried to do it in ZBrush. I don't get a good result. Decorative flowers were not able to arrive in appropriate shape either. Any advice, any workflow, what brushes could I use, or any way to achieve it? I can't be on the live stream, I think, but I'll watch the video later. So, there's no real brushes or there's no like shortcut with any of this, right? I think what I can advise you immediately is find better references. So I don't know if you have more references than this, right? But I would immediately say find more references. That is always the starting point, because now I can't even see what these shapes are, right? I mean, it's also pretty small, but I can't even distinguish like what those shapes are. Because I'm gonna be honest, like, if you can make any shape with like just a standard brush when spending enough time on it, right? So it's never a question of like which brush to use necessarily. There are brushes where you can kind of like for example, like the clay buildup. It's been ages since I used ZBrush, so I'm probably gonna get the terminology wrong. But I would probably go for something like general, like clay buildup or like clay layering. And then whenever I need like something sharper or like something I want to define the edges more, I go for like a pinch, right? And then if I want to inset something, I'll just have like a standard brush that I just like put into it and then combine that with the pinching again. So there's no real trick. It's just about like trial and error and like keep trying it. And then just putting in practice, right? Because I feel like you got the base shape already well defined, right? Like you got the base shape already going. It's just some of the transitions, right? Like this sort of stuff seems to be like more in detail. This leg over here, like seems to be shorter in the references as well. Right? So it's not as long. Like it seems to be like very short and like kind of stumpy. And then probably the same thing for this guy over here. It seems to be... Well, this one might not be that bad. But it's kind of deceptive, right? So this is what I mean with like, I can't really see what kind of a shape this is. Like if it's coming from... It kind of looks like it's relatively flat, but it might also be that just like a shape is coming out and that is contributing to the shape, right? So yeah. I would definitely have a look at that and then compare it with the references that you have, right? Because yeah. That's why I'm saying good references. Find like multiple angles. Usually auction sites are like really good websites to go for like this sort of stuff. If you can find out like the brand or the make or whatever, right? Or like the craftsman that made it, like you're probably gonna find like very high quality pictures. But yeah, just keep practicing, keep doing it, keep refining the shapes, and at a certain point it's gonna get better and better, right? Also, if this is like one of your first ZBrush things that you're ever doing, again, no context here, so I don't know if it is. It's not gonna be perfect from the first go, right? This does take practice. So you're gonna fail the first time, and then you're gonna get better. You're gonna get better. You're gonna get better. Putting in reps. Yeah, like I said, base shape is already pretty good, right? There were some minor tweaks that we had to do to the shape, but I feel like you're pretty well underway though. Yeah. Keep it going, Sebastian. Hope this helped. There are things that you could do, like decorative flowers, right? Like usually what you do... oh, this is another tip, right? So if you have like this sort of layering, right? Where you have like a bit of wood with then like, let's say like a flower or like a very ornamental thing on top of it, separate these out. That's gonna make your life so much easier, because now you don't have to look at the topology, you don't have to look at like how stuff blends together, and you can just like lay one on top of the other, and you can kind of just like detach them and use the move brush to kind of move them into place, and you have more flexibility. Hey everyone, nice day for feedback. Yeah, it really is. So yeah, best of luck, Sebastian. Yeah. Best of luck, that's all I can say. Gotta keep it going, buddy. Nope, only portfolio. But I mean, if the CV/cover letter sucks, it will not go to your portfolio, isn't it? To be honest, I'm searching for my first job in the industry. I don't really know. Oh, I see what you're saying. You never really know, right? Because what they might do is they might look at your cover letter, like visit your portfolio again, and then either like you or not, right? So you can't really know at that point. So I know what you're trying to do, right? Because you're trying to get some analytics to like help you get better, but it's really difficult to find that. I think if you want to go for a less analytical approach, but basically the same thing that you want to go for, is just ask feedback on those specific things, right? So for example, if you have friends that are looking for jobs as well, or if you have a community like this, and you say like, hey, look, this is my first cover letter. I don't know if it's good or not. Can someone help me with this, right? And just post your cover letter. Like black out like the company you're gonna send it to, right? But other than that, you can just like share with people and then like have better improvement than to hope for like some weird analytic thing. That's probably gonna be like a bit more concrete, right? You can do the same for your CV as well. We have done that in the past as well. Do like a CV review or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, best of luck on the job hunt. Hey Eli! By the way, I use a 4K texture for the whole TV. Is that okay for this type of prop? Even more for rendering? The size of it doesn't really matter. I know this is weird because like games are like really heavy on like optimization, but when it comes to portfolio presentation, the size of it, just make it look good. Because it's really easy to like downscale like a texture, right? So yeah. 4K is good. It's a small TV. You could potentially push it down towards the 2K, see if there's like any massive difference, and then go with the 2K instead. But I mean, there's wrenches on ArtStation that have like a 4K texture, right? So it matters. It matters less than it should do. Honestly, that's my honest answer on that. Just curious now. Would you then merge the ornaments into the main mesh for the texturing plus the low poly bake? No, you can just keep them separate in like your high poly, right? So you can combine them as meshes, but you don't need to merge them into like one solid object, right? So that's the way that I would do it. Okay. Next one up, we got Tom. Tom is actually doing some awesome work because he made this for VFX, let's call it, right? I think it was more catered towards like the VFX and film industry. And decided to be like, look, if this is not really workable for like a game related prop, then I'll just change it up. And he changed this whole vehicle to be made with like second UVs and all that kind of stuff. So really diving into the pipeline, which is awesome. First I wonder how to effectively add chunks of dried mud in the cracks of the wheels. Now that most of this is like mid-poly geo, I can't really use the height map to lerp and fill in the cavities. Should I manually plug the holes with blocks of geo? So this is a giant prop, right? At this point, like if we're talking about like, oh, human height, let's add like a little character here, right? Like human height is going to be somewhere around that, right? Approximation. Let's assume this guy is standing down here now. You can definitely go for like little bits of geo. I just be careful with like adding too much, but you can definitely use like bits of geo for this, right? Because there's no real other good way. There's no real other good way to have it look really good up close. You could, for example, have decals, right? So you might already be using them. Like you could have like decals of just like little pebbles and then just like fill the cracks up with those. Then I think it's going to be easier to do like a little bit of geo. So yeah, that's what I would do. Especially in something like this scale. I think a little bit of geo can't really hurt. You just make it like really low poly. You just add like a bunch of stuff in the cracks. It could be good. Just make it like really low geo, right? And then I think you're good. Second, I have issues texturing the smaller details like the bolts and the handles. Is it okay to texture those individually in Substance Painter and then combine them to the rest of the model afterwards? Thank you all so much. So the way that you normally do this, if you're doing like mid-poly workflow, right, is you have a decal sheet. That is basically just like whatever you need, right? Whatever small detail you need. So let's say, oh, we have like one screw here, we have like another screw like with like a cross top, whatever you need, right? Like whatever you need on this sheet. And then you can just map like little sections of geometry and have them as like separate planes. That you can then just add on sections like, for example, here, right? And you just have like little bits of like floating geometry on top of it. That's the way that it's done. Relatively easy. And then you can make them look like all nice and dirtied up, right? The benefit of having this in like small details is you can make them look like really dirty and like worn, and it's kind of gonna blend in by itself, right? But that's the way that you should approach this kind of stuff. Because again, the reason why we do this as like flat planes, right? Oh, and also you can use parallax occlusion mapping for this to make it look like a little bit nicer, because that's going to give you like a little bit of height information, right? But the reason why we do this as planes and not as actual geo is because a screw would require like a lot more geo, right? You might think, hey, I can do like the top of a bolt with like, I don't know, let's say like 30 tries, right? But if you then use that bolt like, let's say 1,000 or 2,000 times, then we've added a lot of geo for something that is basically going to be small anyway, right? It's kind of a weird one because you could kind of say the same thing about the chunks as well. I think because the chunks, I'm thinking about it from like a player perspective, right? You're going to be walking next to the wheels. You're going to see that a lot. And they have like, it's more about the silhouette rather than anything, right? Because a bolt is basically going to be forced into like a surface. So that's the main difference there. Yeah. That's the way that I would do it. You would then have like planes. Of floating geometry on top of everything else. That's the way. And then you have like the rest of it like be opacity, right? So that you're only rendering like the bolt, even though it's like on a square plane. That's pretty much where I'm at. I'll do the details that way. That's awesome. Yep. Great stuff. And then the benefit of that workflow is that you can literally add it anywhere you want, right? Because that texture is going to be loaded in anyway, right? So you might as well have fun with it and add like a bunch of different things, right? You could have, so let's say you have like a bunch of bolts, and then you have like, let's say like a warning sign or something like that on top of it as well, right? You could kind of like infuse it with like different things that could be cool to add like additional detail to like a giant machine like this. So yeah, like panels, like signs, yeah, bolts, etc. right? You get the point. Yeah, that's the way that I would do it. This looks awesome, by the way. Great job. I think I said it last time as well. Like, it's really amazing that you were like, oh shit, this is not the way to do it? Okay, let me flip this whole thing upside down and like, let's make it as it properly should be made. So, that's all for that. Awesome work. And like you said, nearly there. So, it's gonna be cool. Any last thoughts? I would say last thoughts would be spend more time on the way that you're presenting this, right? Really think about the way that you're, think about like the world, right? I know that I'm a sucker for environmental storytelling and all that kind of stuff, but you can definitely do more with the presentation rather than just have it on like a ground plane and have like these orthogonal projections, right? Like orthogonal camera viewpoints, right? That's where I would probably invest like a bit more time, right? And make it look really good. And then think about the breakdowns and all that kind of stuff as well. How would you add dirt dust to those small details? Are you talking about the decal sheet, Mike? You just bake that into it. And you just make it look like generic enough so that it doesn't look like it repeats, right? You could technically make it with like a vertex shader so that you could have like a little bit more control over it as well if you wanted it to, or have some sort of randomization built into your materials where it's based on like a large like scale texture that's being projected so that you get like a little bit of like variation in the dirt as well. Honestly, I don't think a lot of that stuff is going to be needed because in the grand scale of things, like these bolts are going to be that small, right? So I don't think it's going to be noticeable. Just keep the texturing fairly generic and you should be good. Or you could have, you have space on your decal sheet. What you could technically do is have like a clean one, like a dirty one, and like a partial dirty one or something like that. Well, nothing's going to be clean on this. So like a dirty one and like an even more dirty one. You could do that as well. Or have as many variations that you need. Sweet, thank you so much. No worries, Tom. Awesome work. Keep it up. And I'm looking forward to the final presentation. It's gonna be good. Next one up is Antonio. Okay. Nice, thanks. No worries, Mike. No worries. So, Antonio, let's see. Let's get some context. My deadline is tomorrow, so I have 15 hours left to fix. What can I do, like adding props and decals before I need to focus on portfolio level renders and fixes? Okay, first thing that I wanted to bring up, this is the reason why I was asking for those renders, is we're gonna play a game here. We're gonna play a game of spot the difference. Because I just want to really hammer this home. You say that like, hey, I'm under time pressure and you only have like 15 hours left to work on this. But this screenshot is from the 28th. And this one is from today. Just now, before the presentation, right? So I think the issue is not with the 15 hours, is with the way that you spend your time. And I know that this is like straight out the gate. Might be a little bit of a gut punch, but I just want to really drive that home. Because now you're going to be rushing for those final 15 hours and try to get something that's looking really good. But I want you to realize that there was a lot of time along the way that you could have used like way better before now you're like, oh, 15 hours, what can I do? Please help, right? I really want to drive that home a little bit because that's really important. I had to learn that too. There was a lot of times in my student time where I put like wrong priorities and did like a bunch of other stuff, which was totally irrelevant in the long term, right? Very short-sighted. I'll do it. I just want to drive it home. So this is more like advice for the next one, right? Like, spend your time, especially on assignments, right? Because this is like a university assignment. Spend time wisely. I mean, this 15 hours is... Oh, okay. Yeah, but still, right? Like, nothing really has changed. So I think you just could have done like a lot more with the time that you had available. I know that it's just for uni, right? And like, it's not for your portfolio or whatever. But if you're not spending so much time on it now, then I doubt that that's going to change anything when it comes to the actual portfolio randoms too, right? So, I mean, my answer to it was basically going to be like, what are the requirements for the uni, right? Because they must have given you a brief, right? Where they probably highlight what they're going to focus on a little bit, or what the outcome is of the assignment that they gave you, right? Try to distill that and like put your time towards what they are looking for the most. So that's what I would honestly focus my time on. 15 hours. Let's at least have like a couple of... Let's at least have like a decent amount of that time just focused on presentation, making a template, make it all look nice, add your name to it, like add breakdowns, whatever you need to do for the uni, right? Try to focus on that first, so that you have like most of that stuff done, so that at the end, the only thing that you need to do is just grab the images and just drag them into the template, right? I would set all that stuff up. Hi, buddy. You. I would set all that stuff up, and then the only thing that you have to do in the end is just drag those images in. But yeah, I would definitely look at the uni requirements for that. That is... At this stage, you said it yourself, this was like 40% done. So I assume that you have a lot of stuff that you want to do yourself on it first, right? So focus on the uni requirements, and then if you have time left, which I doubt, try to just build down the list that you've set up for yourself. That's the way that I would break this down. Yeah, because if you say yourself, right, that it's 40% done, then you're definitely gonna have to spend like a lot more time on trying to make this look good. And you need to, right? You need to if you wanna have this portfolio ready and industry applicable, right? I mean, I've done most prompts. I just need to dress the scene. Yeah, but this doesn't matter, right? If I can't see it, it doesn't matter. That's the whole point. Because I know this is not an interview, right? This is not an interview at all. But that is just an excuse, right? Like, if I can't see what you've done, like, I don't even know what kind of props you have. Like, there's a barrel, right? And like, there's a barrel and a bench. And you got the cart as well. But there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be in the scene to make it look really interesting, right? So, yeah. Think about that stuff. I know it's harsh, man. I'm trying to be like straight up, but like, it is now or never, right? Like, you're in the final moments when it comes to like actually presenting your portfolio and getting the job, right? That's the next stage. So, yeah, you better start working on it, man. Okay. But yeah, again, what I would say, you got a good base, right? You got a good base. Just look at the unit requirements, what they need you to do, and then work towards that, and then just hand it in, and then work more on it if you wanted to. Yeah. And I will say best of luck. Yeah, best of luck. Oh, squid cheese. Okay. Thank you so much for showing your work, Antonio. As always, I know it's never easy. It's never easy for me to talk about it in such a way. But it really is like that, though. Right? I wish you the best of luck, but like, there's only so much wishing that I can do to get you to work more, right? Thank you, boss. No worries. No worries. We got Maxens here as the next person. Let's have a quick look. No, I don't think you do, actually. I don't think you need luck. You just need to sit down and do work. I know it's very straightforward, like almost like rudimentary advice, right? But just doing the work, that's what you need. You don't need like an external thing. You just need to sit down and do the work. That's it. Very simple. It's hard to do it though. Let's have a look. So Maxens, I asked for something more specific, right? Because as I said before, I'm not a designer. I also don't know if this yeah, what the purpose of this is, right? Like we talked about before. I like where this is going. I like the shapes that I'm seeing. I like the way that it's like kind of laid out, like in terms of like visual hierarchy, right? So that we get like a nice transition between all the shapes. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this. Honestly, it's looking good. Keep it up. I need the harsh talk mint. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have given you the harsh talk though. Like there's been quite a lot of people that have said the same thing. I know this is not my comfort zone at all, right? Talking about it in such a way, but it is true though. Anyway, Kieran. So I asked the same thing about the gun that Kieran is doing as well, just to see if we can focus on like something specific because there was no questions in it. So so I don't have ADHD, right? But I've worked with people that have, and they are productive. So there must be a way around it. Or like not a way around it, or like a way to cope with it, or like a way to ease the distractions, all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Excuse will stop now. We'll go to work. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll be open about it, right? You don't have to do it for me. You don't have to do it for all the other people that said it. You have to do it for yourself. Because if you don't, then you're not going to get a job in games, and you'll have to work after work to do the same thing that you're doing now, right? You have more time now. I mean, I know that you're still working like a full-time job and all that stuff, but it's not going to get easier. I can guarantee that. So, Kieran, couple of quick things here. First of all, the main difference, I'm gonna talk about it in like very broad terms here, right? But this feels more like metal than this one does, right? I don't even know. I don't know if it is metal, right? But it doesn't feel like the same sort of metal, right? This feels more like a sort of like a polished, like kind of gun metal that still has like a has like a sleek exterior, right? Where this one is more grainy. And we're really missing that sort of finish, where it kind of breaks up the surface and doesn't have like a shine to it. I can already see that you try to do that, right? But it's definitely not enough. I feel like the base of it needs to be just that grainy, sort of like almost plasticky look. Same as Ryan is saying as well, right? Is it meant to be a metal kind of finish or more plasticky? Because there's definitely a difference now, right? It is shiny versus grainy. That's what's currently happening, right? And that is straight up the first thing that's really noticeable. It does look more sick metallic though. Yeah, I mean, I think what is difficult with guns, right? And I don't envy like, well, first of all, acid artists, and then definitely not like hard surface artists, because they're working in a realm where like most of their stuff is made out of metal, and it's like slight deviations between like every little bit of metal that has to work. So like stuff like this, the grainy feel of this compared to like the less grainy feel of like some other surfaces, and then like the plastic at the back, like they should be super readable. And that depends on like a lot of small layering that hasn't happened yet, right? So that's what I'll say here. The material doesn't read as it should yet. Maybe not sick per se, but it does look sick both ways. Yeah, it does. The reason why I think it's better to go for something like this is because they're planning to make like the whole gun, right? And we're probably gonna see like a whole bunch more of like shiny metal. And then contrasting that with the stock is gonna be really important, right? Because otherwise all the stuff is just gonna look the same all over the place. Jacob is saying, in Substance you can blur slope, but you can use a custom grain texture. Might work well with what you already have. That's a cool point. I'm not familiar with that trick. So, blur slope with custom. What is that? Custom grain texture. That could be cool. So like a little tip from Jacob over here. Blur a blur slope. A blur slope. With a custom grain texture. Thanks so much for that, Jacob. That's awesome. Is it making the full gun? 100%. Yeah, I think... yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the whole thing come together as well. But I would definitely already just like work on the materials now. Also, black on black, right? Like, make it like a white background or something like that so we can really read the shape well. I think it also presents way better as well, in my opinion. I feel like the black on black is just like really, really overdone. It's really hard to read unless you have like really good like rim lighting, right? So that you can make the edges stand out more. But yeah, we don't have that yet, so. Cool, Kieran. I'll leave it at that. Best of luck with adding all the other parts, and I will add the feedback in the chat later on. Let me. Oh, now he's just gonna stand in the doorway. Typical. How can I say my portfolio for review? So this is not a portfolio review. We do portfolio reviews in a week from now. But we are working through a backlog currently. The backlog is pretty chunky. So I will... cable's too short. But if you want to participate in these, all you have to do is become a member of our community, and then you can basically sign up every week if you wanted to. But here's the link for people that want to get like a portfolio review for next week. Next up, we have Sophie. Let's have a look at Sophie's awesome update. Already liking what I'm seeing, already better presented. I like some of the detail shots that you have here. I would honestly, I'm not sure if this is going to be like part of your final presentation, right? But I would probably just do like a wireframe for the whole thing, and then have these like really slick detail shots just by themselves. That's probably the way that I would present it, right? So that you could have like, let's assume just like a render like this, and then just have like a wireframe version as well in your breakdown somewhere. Because we don't necessarily need to have like wireframes from like all these smaller ones. Again, this is just like a suggestion, right? If you're already kind of at the end of it and you're just like, oh god, I just want to get this out of here, that's all fine, right? But I think the detail shots could actually work really well by themselves, and they don't need that additional wireframe component to them. Just like the ones that you shared afterwards as well, right? I think they read like really well by themselves. But yeah, you just have the wireframe on the whole thing. Let's see. So I made a note of this already. I think you map this on a trim, right? And there's like these black lines that are showing up. And I think that's because, I don't know, either you assign like a different material on this edge, right? Or you didn't map your surfaces correctly to the trim. There's something weird going on, and it gives like, unless it's intentional, right? If it's intentional, then okay. But it kind of gives like everything like a really weird like stylized look, where it's almost like highlighting the edges. Or not highlighting, right? But like emphasizing the edges. But since it's not happening here, I'm assuming that it's not the intention. So that would be something to look into actually, just as like a final tweak, right? So those dark edge highlights. That would be something to look into. Let's see. The stone/brick detail is also just really nice. Super cool updates. Yeah, this one is really great. Like, definitely, like, just took all the advice that we had last time and, like, really just ran with it. So, it's awesome to see. Awesome to see what you did with it, Sophie. Great work. Small tip. I'm going to be super annoying here. This, just get rid of it, right? Otherwise, this presentation is awesome. Nice and to the point. I like it. Next time, what you could probably... So, what I'll... It's not a killer, right? Like, it's not something that you're at the end of the project. You don't have to redo it now or whatever you want to do. But there's a lot of, like, wasted geometry here that doesn't really add to the silhouette. You could honestly just, like, have collapsed that to, like, the edge, right? And saved yourself, like, a whole lot of geometry. Because, yeah, even though you have, like, some nice sculpted edges, right? The actual geometry underneath is still, like, relatively straight. So you're not really making full use... Not necessarily making full use of, like, a geometry that you have added. If we're talking about, like, deviations where maybe, like, these edges, they kind of all collapse, and then we have, like, a really nice, like, detailed edge where it kind of curves inwards a little bit, that could be cool. But right now, it doesn't really feel like it's contributing to it. But I know that this is painful, right? Because I know that you did this all by hand, like retopologizing. The shapes are simple, but you still put in like a lot of effort, and I can tell that you did. So I would honestly take that to the next project, right? Because again, it's something that people can tell you to do, right? But I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker. It wouldn't be for me. Like, it would just be like, okay, like there's some optimization that can be done. But at least you took your time, you spend the time, and you really show that you care for the stuff that you want to build. So that's awesome. So I'll still add it here for next project, right? Don't have to necessarily do it now. The rest of it looks really nice. Like Ryan said, I think. The flicks on the hourglass look really cool. I like this sort of stuff. That's really well done. I think overall the presentation has like increased like dramatically as well. There's still some stuff that you wanted to do as well. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see you put like the final polish on everything. Yeah, overall like really solid work. Let me see if there's anything else that I can help with. The color of the tile and the trim texture so that all the stone color are uniform. Tile and the trim. Let's see, is there like a good example? So yeah, I guess. It feels relatively uniform though. Like you get like that nice variation that you would see in like natural rock, right? And that's cool. Oh, the trim application, as I have this weird black border on some of the meshes. Yeah, I think that's just because the edges of your trims. I don't know what you did. Maybe it's like the normal issue as well, right? But that's definitely something to look into. For sure. I think that's honestly like the most pressing thing. And the rest of it looks really, really nice and clean. So great job. I think also for the next time. Well, you could still do it now. I call it the character pass, right? I keep calling it that. And this is not where you actually add a character to the whole thing, but it's actually where you cut in like additional lines and you just like change the silhouette a little bit so that it gives it like a lot of flavor, right? So the stuff that you did here, right? This is beautifully done because you get like a nice edge that shows like, oh, this stone is not just like precise cut, but it's been like hand cut by someone, right? You get that like nice detail. Basically the same thing that I think we talked about last time, where like you break up the silhouette a little bit. That sort of stuff like matters a lot. So yeah, you can definitely add like more character to it by like just adding more cuts into things and picking like a couple of surfaces, right? So for example, this pillar, you could have just like a little bit of like just like cuts in it, just breaking up that like long straight edge that you have. And that is actually a way that you could also use this one as well, because you have some leftover topology, right? And if you like redistribute it a little bit and then make more use of it, you can actually just like get like 2 birds with 1 stone if you wanted to. So you could do those 2 things at the same time. That would be awesome. But yeah, that's it, Sophie. Love the work. Love the iterations that you've done as well. I'm also so sorry for not replying to like your message that you sent like after last session, because I read it and then completely forgot about it. So if that happens next time, feel free to like tag me again or send me a DM, right? Like, did you have a chance to read this? Because sometimes I just forget. I think I just read it and it just immediately just went to sleep. So, yeah. Apologies for that. But as last time, I'll just post this on your little thread as well. And thanks so much for posting your work. It's looking awesome. Yeah, super cool updates. I agree. I definitely need to update my portfolio already because it already looks out of date. Yeah, but that's going to be like a permanent thing though. Like that's going to be like something that you're going to struggle with forever. Right? You're always going to be improving. You could definitely like put more speed behind the current projects that you're doing though. Like the Canon. You could definitely have done like more progress on that. Route 1. But I don't know what kind of time you have available, right? Maybe you're super busy with other stuff too. Because it's not only about the art, it's also about life, right? And obviously, like, we need to do like a whole bunch of other stuff too. It's not only about like make art like full time. Okay, I'm gonna switch it over. Well, I'll do Ryan first, and then I'll switch it over to Scott as well. Let's see. You, Ryan. So, I've been trying to pretty closely match the reference during the blockout while getting things to still snap nicely. We'd love to see if there's any thoughts on the proportions and the scale. The thing that I can immediately see is that because you did like a little bit more snapping, right? Oh, interesting. Because I'm kind of looking at just like the images here. Scale is so short. It looks completely. Oh, okay. I took a different shot. I see it now. So, if we are comparing these guys, right? Let me drag it down here. If we are comparing these guys, yours is like feels like way longer than the original one. But I think that might also be like an FOV thing as well. Or like a camera thing. That's like the thing that immediately stood out to me. This one is a little bit better though. I don't know if you change anything about the level itself, but this feels more in line with what you have like originally here. So that's really good. I think it's partially FOV. Yeah, I think so too. But these ones feel like way more similar already. So I think, yeah, which is like the old image. I think this is good though. Like a good translation between the two. Oh, you mean, yeah, okay, you didn't do anything. It's just the FOV here. Okay. Well, that also means that the FOV in the first one, like, kind of made it look like way longer than it's supposed to do, right? So, it just shows you the power of what you can do with, like, a camera, really. So, I think that's good. I think this one is, like, way more clean as well. So I think the proportions are good. I don't really have like anything glaring that stands out. So that's a check. Proportions and scale. Yeah, there's obviously going to be like some concessions that you have to make, right? So for example, this guy over here feels like a little bit like dumbed down compared to like how the tall stuff is here. And it probably has to, it doesn't really have to do with like how tall the ceilings are. It just has to do with like how wide the balconies are. The good thing is with the balconies though, you could tighten them up if you wanted to, right? Because this doesn't seem like it is just like a really tight balcony, right? So if there was one thing maybe, It's just like how wide the balcony is. But obviously that's going to have an effect on like this guy as well. So what I would probably do, change the balcony to where you want it to be, right? So let's say we're moving it to here, and then move like the wall up here as well. Because it's all well and good that you want to work in like a modular way, right? And it's nice that you want to have like the nearest grid snap and all that stuff. It makes your life so much easier. But yeah, it's like the balance between the two, right? Like how close do you match stuff? Yeah, that would be like the only thing maybe that I'll bring up then. The smaller balcony. Totally can definitely play with that. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the power of having a modular set. Awesome. Let's see. Second point, any really tricky sections or elements you can see in the reference that might catch me by surprise and trying to hit the realism target? Nothing really. It is really relatively simple, right? Apart from like maybe the pipe work and all that stuff. That's going to be interesting to work on. But I think it has a nice balance of just like how clean it is compared to like where the visual interest is, right? What that does mean though, now that I'm saying this, is that if you want to have like, you want to have clean materials, but they also have to look worn as well, right? What I mean by that is if you start like really paying attention, right, you would probably see like color variation, slight cracks, like you got leaks coming from here. Like it's basically like a really clean base, but then with like very intentional, like soft layering on top of it, right? So if there was one thing that I have to say, like nailing that feel of like the materials are clean, but they do have that like nice coating of like, oh, there's like a little bit of variation, but it's like all very subtle. Subtlety is going to be the most difficult part, I think. And to especially make that look interesting. Yeah, the pipework is gonna be nice. I would honestly don't overthink it. Don't make it much of a kit. Like just how do I explain this the best? Because in essence you are making a modular kit, right? But you make like all the elements and then you just like add a lot of geometry to like make it look like nice and bendy and like attached to the wall and all that kind of stuff, right? So you're basically making a kit, but then you're kind of treating it as like a unique like asset at the end where you're gonna add like more geo to have it like nice and bendy and curvy instead of like the base kit, right, which is like very straight and like very solid in its setup. But yeah, I think honestly that's gonna be the most difficult thing, is getting those materials to like really read well. I don't think the lighting is going to be necessarily too difficult because it's relatively straightforward, right? Getting the post-processing to work nicely as in the picture, that's going to be interesting, but I don't think that's going to be like too difficult. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. I like this kind of stuff, right? Where it's like more on like the spectrum of like architectural visualization, but it does use like game techniques, right? I think it's a really nice exercise just going to the core of like a modular kit, making it like relatively simple, but then just making it look like really nice. It's gonna be awesome. Looking forward to when I get to the decals for sure. Yeah, exactly. I think definitely have a set of decals for sure, right? And then built in like some slight like vertex painting where you have like a little bit of freedom Especially, I don't know if you can actually see it in here all too well. Like just have like in the corners, you kind of want to have like a little bit of like a dust buildup. So it's like the material just gets slightly darker and has maybe like a little bit more like spots in it, right? It's dust and it's moisture, it's all that kind of stuff. Right, but that's gonna mean that like the corners are slightly gonna be darker. I think this is honestly like one of the most interesting tips that I saw from the Call of Duty Warzone team, I think. They did this very deliberately. Whenever like another mesh would touch like another mesh, like in a corner or something like that, they would intentionally like have, I think it was, I can't remember how they did it, but they intentionally would make like the corners darker just to like kind of have this transition towards the edges. It looked really good. But it's one of those subtle things that you don't really pay attention to, right? Especially in a game like Warzone, you're just running around and like shooting other people. Yeah, those little details are going to matter a lot. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more updates on this, Ryan. Best of luck, and if there's anything I can help, let me know. Next up, I said that I was going to do Scott next. Let's have a look. Going to add the with Wednesday tag. Any compositional or focal point issues would be good to flag. Add anything else major which isn't effective or appealing. Thank you. No worries, Ryan. So we got 2 different scenes here. This works way better with the boot on the left. What I would also probably want to see more is more of these streetlights. Maybe even go for like because they're quite heavy up top, right? And it kind of feels like it's like very chunky up top. Because I kind of want to see like maybe not every couple of meters, but like have like some sort of repetition going on. Yeah, you probably don't want to put like anything in the foreground here. I don't mind if that one gets like obstructed like a little bit. So that we get like a little bit more infrastructure going on, because I know that you were looking for excuses to do that as well, right? Otherwise I can't really see anything that's like glaringly obvious. I think also a good choice of getting rid of this fence, because that fence was just like too much, right? It was just too visually annoying. That's a good shout. Yeah. I would say though, with like now the bright light coming from the left, it is very. Should have hit the guy. No, it's not too bad. I was gonna say like with like the light coming in from like the left. It is very intense though. Like, and it's almost like it's pulling me away from like what you probably want me to look at first, right? Or maybe not necessarily, but it kind of feels like it's such like a heavy distraction on the left, where maybe it's too intense. More street lights. You can play around with where you put them, right? Yeah. I think it could also be cool. That might be your intent, right? Where you have like this ship over here, and then have like a similar sort of ship that's kind of like dropping off goods. Like maybe just like rotate it and like have it like coming in or something like that. And then I think we also talked about like putting more infrastructure here, right? So you could add like these light posts over here as well, with like some sort of fencing going on. Maybe the fence goes off, and then like a little building over here too. There's probably a lot that you can do with just like the simple elements that you have in the foreground, right? Just to build up some of the background stuff too. Could be interesting to look into. And then maybe there's like another container yard over here, right? With like a bunch of containers. Just like spicing up the background a little bit as well. Are the containers in the center bad? These ones, I don't mind them actually. I was looking at them, but they don't like really distract too much. I think it kind of adds to like the whole infrastructure that you were trying to look for, right? I feel like if there was one thing that you could say, like maybe how close this is getting together, but that's like a nitpick, right? I don't mind like the containers being there, because it also feels like it's pretty far away. Like they're kind of tiny, and then you have the grass build up before it as well. So I don't mind it particularly, but maybe this tiny thing over here. This tiny, it's not a tangent now, but it looks close enough to be one. But I don't mind them overall. I think it's like nice that you have more of them as well. Kind of adds to like the whole build up of the space again. Maybe I was kind of thinking maybe you could have like stacks of containers, but I don't know where to put them, right? Like at first I was like, oh, it would be cool if you have like a stack of containers here, but then you kind of have like this nice chunky silhouette here that kind of gets lost in. So maybe, I don't know. I don't think there's like a good place to put like a stack of them, apart from the stuff that you already have, right? Yeah. To go back on the ship a little bit as well, like pushing like a heavier connection between the two. Maybe, yeah, I'm trying to think, right? Like with 2 frames, what could you do? Because I'm almost looking for like a story where you could see it from like this person's perspective, right? Like this guy over here, where he could be like a freight driver or whatever it's called, like a space truck driver, right? And he could be looking at like, I don't know, the other trucks that are coming in or something like that. But I don't know how you would build like a connection with the first scene. Maybe the ship would be enough, right? And keep it like nice and subtle, and then people can make up whatever they want. Be cool as well. To be fair. Yeah. Thinking about that a little bit more, especially once you get like closer to like finishing it. Would be cool. Fix now rather than later? Yeah. Both of these are looking great. I agree with him that the light on the left is pretty close to pulling the attention away, potentially. But I do still definitely like look at the sphere and the window there first. Window? Yeah. Yeah, it is true. Like it is like a very prominent thing in the scene. It feels just like the sun is more of a distraction, right? Yeah. I do like the contrast between the two, right? It's definitely like noticeable that like one planet is just like it's more fucked up, and then the other planet is just like, oh, it's just like a nice safe haven. It kind of has that vibe to it, right? Like very contrasting vibes, which is awesome. Ship and the branding I want to connect. I need to brand the sphere company so I can add it to the bottom. The cargo company is the only connection with the similar ships. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think that could work. Right, just like a subtle a subtle thing like that. Yeah, could be cool. Yep. I think that's about it on the top one, especially. I haven't really looked too close at this one yet. But I feel like just this one feels really good by itself, right? Like very moody, very atmospheric. Yeah, it's definitely my favorite of the two. Yeah, it's hard to retroactively do that. I know. I feel like if I was to be like openly honest, right? I feel like you can definitely tell that the bottom scene has like a much stronger like foundation than the top scene, right? Because I know that you started with the concept and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of feels like, okay, you're trying to add stuff to it to make it make sense between the two. But with the top one, it kind of feels like you're applying a band-aid, where with the bottom one, you're actually doing it at like a foundational level, right? So it feels really well embedded and established in that one. But hey, I honestly wouldn't worry about that too much, right? I think it's going to be one of those things where if it is your intent to set up like a universe or something like that, right? Or start building connections between like your pieces, then yeah, like you're saying yourself as well, like the concept was too loose. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're basically trying to cover up for like some things that you were missing, right? Yeah. But this is going to be one of those things that's going to be really interesting to see if you still want to do that for the next ones, right? Like how you're going to evolve that, because I think that's where a lot of the power is as well, where you keep doing this and you kind of build like a different scene, but then have like the same sort of branding, or like maybe there's like a saying stuff, right? But like maybe one of those ships is actually crashed on like a different planet, right? And it can kind of become like your thing as you like build connections between places, right? And it can be like as implied or as subtle as you want it to, right? You could have like almost like, I'm just imagining, I'm stuck with a jungle. Not saying that you should do foliage, but I'm imagining like an overgrown jungle where you see like the carcass of a ship, but you can still like subtly read like, what is it, like Mercorp cargo or something like that, right? Where you could have the same driver, but then he's like a skeleton in that one or something like that, right? Yeah, you could kind of use that in like a lot of ways, right? And you could kind of use it in like very implied ways or very subtle ways. So it's gonna be fun to play around with it for sure. Kind of the same thing that I'm doing now with my medieval scene, right? Yeah, I'm kind of just like exploring like a little world that I'm building, and I'm just like building new scenes that are like linked to the original scene. Once I post it, of course. Yeah. Well, it's on top of the list for the next one. Oh shit, yeah, that's gonna be cool, man. If I can help with any of that, just let me know. Even though it's been a while. Yeah, no, cool stuff, man. That's all I have to say. I think the bottom one is definitely like in a really solid place. I feel like, yeah, you have like a list of stuff that you wanted to do on it, right? I think it's more about like polish and all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah, cool stuff, Scott. Thanks for posting your work. It's awesome to see this one kicking back up, you know. All right. Let's have a look. Where are you, Mike? Here you are. Hello again. Update. The project is almost done. I'm doing my lighting setup. Searching for good angles and tweaking my textures. Thank you. Interesting to see your perspective. I've looked at them too much. I get it, man. Yeah, I definitely get it. Jumping back into my personal work now, I've done so many things that I didn't even think about, like, because it's been such a long time since I worked on it, right? So I can definitely get it. So, a couple of questions here from Maya. The first one is, when is enough enough? Yeah, that's a good question. So are there any tips that are like good to know? I mean, with time and projects, oh, sorry, it will become more evident when enough is enough, but maybe it's better to ask for now. So it's a really good question. I think enough is enough when you decide it's enough, right? It's kind of like a weird kind of statement, but on most projects, if you really think about it, you can probably keep building on them forever. The way that I look at it is, when is enough, right? I'll just write that, even though it doesn't make like any sense. When is enough? So when is it enough? The way that I look at it is that it's enough when you fulfilled like your goals that you set for the project, right? A really simple one is whenever like a project is skill based, right? For example, I want to learn how to do foliage. So I'll make a project that is all about foliage, and kind of once I know how to do foliage to like a competent level, that's when the project is done, right? Like I'm happy with it. I kind of know like all the workflows. Cool. I'll just present it, light it, and then it's my foliage project done. That's easy. I think I would say for you, it is, let's see. I'm trying to look at like your first post to see what your goals were. Let's see. Coffee machine as a focal point. Yeah. Okay. So, I would say, since we're kind of new, well, not completely new, but like you're newer to like the whole process, right? You're learning a lot of stuff, right? So I think you did really well on this project. You showcase that you kind of have like an interesting scene to look at, right? You have the coffee machine, which is a focal point, which was the goal, right? So you definitely achieved that. You have added some textures, and you have built like the coffee machine yourself, which is awesome, right? I would honestly say that enough is enough when at this point you're done with the project, right? I know that like done is kind of like this abstract thing because you can be done for like different reasons. But if you're already asking that question, I feel like you're in that moment where it's like, okay, like I kind of am done, but should I be done, right? So I think whenever you want to call it done, then it's done for you. What I would do at that point is potentially leave it for, let's say, 1 or 2 days, right? If you're working on it full time. And then look back at it again and then focus on what you can improve on the presentation side of things. And then spend like a couple of days on just presenting the work. And with presenting, I mean, maybe you can do some tweaks on the lighting. Maybe you can do some tweaks in post-processing. Maybe you can improve the presentation that you're going to do on ArtStation, right? All that kind of stuff. Take your time with that. Right? Like it's important to take your time with the presentation. So that's what I would do at this point. If you decide like, hey, look, I don't know if I should be done. I feel like I'm done. Take 1 or 2 days, then come back at it and like try to look at it with fresh eyes, and then spend like a couple of days working on like really tweaking the presentation, and then just post it, and then move on to the next thing. Because otherwise we're just gonna keep working on things, but like the work that you're doing at the final stages of a project are gonna be way slower than what you could actually be spending your time more effectively on something like, hey, I think I'm weak at, name whatever you're weak at, and then build a project around that, right? For an example, I'll say foliage again, right? As an example. 2, because it's a scene with prompts, the 3-point light technique is a bit tricky to implement. Yeah. At this point, you shouldn't have like a 3-point lighting setup. Basically, a 3-point lighting setup is basically the stuff that you use for a prop just by itself, right? If you have a freestanding prop, then you can do that. Like the one that we talked about, like with Hannah Watts last time. That's like, it's just a plane, and then you have just like the asset on top of it, and then you can use like a structure, right? Like a 3-point lighting structure like that. Let's see. Did we discuss that last time? Yeah, I can't remember if we did. So I would not use that. That's why we kind of have the sun coming from the outside, right? So everything is going to be lit as like a natural scene would be lit as well. So if you want to get some inspiration there, look at a source that's close to you, right? So look at a source like, it's gonna be like an interior design book or something like that. Or websites, right? There's probably like a bunch of interior design websites or architectural visualization, right? That focus on like a kitchen, and draw some like inspiration from them. Maybe not architectural visualization because they are more focused on like neutral light, right? Because everything needs to look like nice and clean. That's why I said like an interior design book, because they probably have like a wider color spectrum that they use. But that could be like an interesting reference in terms of like lighting, right? Because they oftentimes work with like natural light. Any tips for lighting setup on the scenes that the room would be helpful? Yeah, like I said before, like you're basically relying on like your light coming in from the window, right? So that's gonna be your main light source. That's basically gonna be it. The most of the stuff that's gonna come after is probably gonna be like post-processing, or like a very simple implementation of like lighting a scene, right? You can go further than that, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Look at how other people did a scene, right? Look at people that inspire you, and look at how they try to break down at how they light their stuff. Pinterest is probably also going to be like a great resource for this, but it's been a while since I used it myself. Feels very Pinterest-like. McFal, how's the stream been today? It's been good. I feel like the stream is also consistent, right? Like we're not losing power or anything like that, so that's pretty good. And Nacho is asking for a lot of attention as well. Oh, boy. Let's see. So that's all I can say. Like, look for a lot of inspiration there, right? And then number 3 is I'm considering a few options for the breakdown. Do you think it's a good idea to do beauty shots of the espresso machine alone, in a lineup of props that were good and of good quality? Lastly, I'm thinking about displaying a texture breakdown with multiple maps. What are your thoughts on these approaches? So if you want like any further like details on that, I talk about it a lot in my portfolio reviews. I basically bring it up like every time. But as a quick refresher, the standard template that I advise for like a breakdown is one main shot, right? And then you got like how many additional shots that you have. I would not advise to do many, especially in this case. And then dive into like the breakdown afterwards, right? And then the breakdown, you got to think about what we do as game artists, right? So as game art, we look for a lot of technical things, right? So what's important to us is a wireframe, textures, a poly count, and then I feel like I'm forgetting one. Wireframe, textures, poly count. These are the ones. I kind of feel like my mind is blanking. But yeah, have those all included. Especially present them in context to the asset itself, and then you're good. What you want to do with like a lineup of props is I would have like a beauty shots of the espresso machine, and then you could do like a lineup of props as well. That's up to you. Honestly, I'm trying to give you like as much flexibility as you need, right? Because I don't know what you build. I don't know all the stuff that you build, right? So, yeah. We can talk about it next time if you want to. Be more than happy to talk about it. Yeah. Thanks again for showing your work, Maya. Best of luck. And yeah, looking forward to seeing the next post or the finished piece. Gonna be awesome. Last 3 for today. First we got Eli. Eli is asking for feedback on the composition. I think I'm really close, but I feel like something is off. Oh, Ryan, thank you so much for being so supportive, man. Appreciate it. So Ryan is also saying, absolutely take like a 1 to 2 day breather. Can do wonders. Best of luck with wrapping it up. Yeah. Yeah, that 1 to 2 day thing is so crucial because, like Scott was saying as well, right? You get so blind because you're working on it for such a long time that you can't even see what you're doing at a certain point. So taking that break is crucial sometimes. Have you ever been interested in becoming a technical artist? Well, I do a lot of technical stuff in my own personal work. Just don't really have like an interest in doing that for like 8 hours a day as a full-time job, right? So, yeah. I like it where it's now. Like I can focus on the art and then do like the occasional tool. That's what I like to do. Like, I mean, if you watch my stream, right, that's basically like the way that I love working. It's like, oh, I'm interested in something. I'll see if I can make like a tool for it. And then I'll just like dive into the deep end. But becoming like a full-time technical artist? No, not really. Because a lot of what they do is just not really that related to art or not in the way that interests me, right? I love telling stories. I love building environments. And what they oftentimes focus on is just like the tools or just like workflow improvements or like figuring out like really difficult things to do with like landscaping or, you know, like all the really, really technical stuff. Really have an interest in that. Because, I mean, would pay a lot more. Probably. As soon as you slap like technical on anything, like it earns a lot more. So yeah. Nah, not for me. I'll let someone else like toil away for like 8 hours a day and like go home with like, I don't know, a brain that's on fire. I just like telling my stories. Eli, for feedback. Composition, I think I'm really close, but I feel like something is off. I mean, let's see. Yeah. Looks like you're off. It's really easy, right? Sometimes. What's happening? But like, we can just do like a 23%. Have a look. That's what is off in like difference, right? I think you mentioned this yourself as well. But you didn't know if it was like your FOV or something like that. It could be. It could be a bunch of different things, right? But this is like what is currently off. So it seems like you have everything shifted a little bit more to the right. So just shifting, well, rotating your camera a little bit more to the right is going to help a lot as well. And then moving the pillar. This is probably too technical for what you need, right? But there is a way to basically project a concept art on top of your camera. Basically have it like in your camera in Unreal and have it as like an overlay that you can like turn the opacity up and down to like really figure out like how close you want to get. But honestly, like for a lot of this stuff, it doesn't need to be 100% perfect either, right? As long as it's recognizable that it's like the same kind of thing, it's fine. Take like some creative liberties, right? It's not about like recreating something 100% perfectly. It's about doing it justice. Like that's differently. That's something different, right? Let's say the back structure in the original concept looks like it is bits far back, but I don't know if it's my FOV. The water material looks bland from this angle. Yeah, because water relies on reflections, right? And you don't have a reflection right now. So, a tip for reflections is... Oh, no, I don't want to write on top of that image. A tip for reflections is look into planar reflections. That's going to be really useful for a plane like yourself. Well, you're not a plane. I'm talking about the water, obviously. So planar reflections, it's basically just like you have your water, and then a planar reflection is basically a plane that you lay on top of the water, and it's going to give you like really high quality reflections. Although I don't know if they change in Unreal Engine 5. They might have. So I'm going to add a question mark here. If they're still relevant. Might be. Not sure. Otherwise, some other things. The water roughness. It's definitely really important to get like good reflections, right? Because if you have... Nope, I'm in a plane now. The water definitely needs to be like reflective, right? So look at your roughness values as well. Make sure that it's like nice and shiny. Maybe the shader does like a couple of like tricks where it like makes the water less shiny than it needs to be, right? So that could be something to look into as well. Angle. Yeah, there are other things that you could look into, but they get like so specific that I don't think you'll need them, right? Because you could have like a reflection that you kind of force into it. But I think if you do the planar reflections, I think that hopefully should be enough. There's also like another option inside of your project settings, I think, or your engine settings. Look for high quality reflections, because you are gonna need that. Usually it's reserved for high reflections. High quality reflections. Look for that. Obviously spelled fully, right? So look for that in project or engine files. I'm assuming it's project. And that's going to give you like way better reflections. Usually reserved for something like architectural visualization, right? Because it's going to have like a performance impact as well. But if you're doing a scene like this, it's not going to be too big of a deal. For the grass, I'm using RVTs, and on the sunny side, it's barely visible. Yeah, that's the issue, right? Because when you're doing RVTs, you're basically sampling the color from your terrain, which means that if it is it's the exact same color as your terrain, it's going to be blending in, right? What I would do for your blending of the grass is you basically, if this is like your grass section, right? This should be RVT, and then this should be like whatever color you assign to it. That's the way that you should set it up. Right, so that the bottom of the grass blends with the terrain, and then as soon as it goes to like a certain, like, it's obviously going to be like a smooth gradient, right? But then it blends into a color that you assign to it as well. So that you get like natural blending with the dirt, well, with the grass in your case, and then you can assign like a color to it still. So that's the way that I would set it up for your RVTs. That solves that issue. Also, you probably don't even necessarily need RVTs for something as simple as this, if you're gonna do like a stylized interpretation of it, right? But that's up to you. And number 3, no idea how to make clouds. There's a number of ways how you can create clouds. For clouds that are like so far in the distance, I would probably just do like a 2D plane that has like volumetrics inside of it. I would honestly just look this up. We actually have a workshop that talks about blueprints, so it's not really related to what you want to do. But this is where I'm getting the tip from. It's from Cairo Goodbrand. And he showed, like, he had like a smoke trail that looked 3D, but it was actually just like a plane that it was on. So you could kind of use the same volumetric 2D kind of approach to create like really nice clouds in the background. You could do like a 3D volumetric cloud as well, but that's going to be like really heavy. Like, well, not really heavy. It's going to be like way more heavy than 2D. Yeah. You could do like 2D or 3D, depending on what you want to do. For your stuff, I would look into like 2D. And then for the mountain, I have some idea, but nothing 100%. For the mountain, I would honestly just like use Unreal Engine Landscape. Just make it super simple. Do like a little bit of sculpting on top of it. Keep it super simple. I would not overcomplicate this. Make it really simple. If you run into issues, right? So Unreal Engine terrain. And if you run into issues but you don't really get what you want, just make it a mesh. Make it like a full ZBrush mesh that you just put in the distance. And you can like texture it with like vertex paint or whatever. But I would just do like Unreal Engine terrain first. You can also generate this terrain with a height map as well. So you could technically sculpt this height map in ZBrush. Take that data, right? So like it would look like an alpha, right? With like black borders, like the white in the middle, so that you can get like a nice like mountain that you could reuse in like whatever project you do. You take that height map into Unreal, you add that to the terrain, right? And then you can set how strong it's gonna be. So basically how tall the mountain is gonna be. Really simple stuff, but like really straightforward stuff, right? But I think once you do it once, you could then also, if you do it with a height map, what you could do is say like, hey, look, this Unreal Engine terrain doesn't really work for me, right? You could then take that height map and just generate a mesh from it as well. So you're not losing any work because you're using the same base to generate a mesh. And then you can still sculpt on top of it as well. Or, well, if you sculpt it anyway, you just use that mesh. So yeah, you got lots of options. Lots of options. There's one thing, you did a breakdown, which is looking pretty good. I would not do edge decals though, because I would just sculpt like a couple of pieces and just have them look really nice with a silhouette. Because with an edge decal, what you're basically doing is, let's say we add like an edge decal here. Right? That edge decal is not going to change the silhouette of the actual thing. It's going to make it look like it has a silhouette. But for this, like, we actually want it to be like all nice and sculpted, right? Because it is a piece of like a ruined castle. So I would rather have you do like a couple of really nice looking rocks, right? With like really nice chiseled edges. Or maybe do like this whole thing as like a unique thing. Or maybe not. I think the tiles are going to be like more reusable. But I would sculpt that instead. It's just higher quality. And it's going to look good from this angle as well. Bulborb is saying the height map route is fun and gives good results since it's in the distance. Yeah, exactly. Especially because it's in the distance, right? You can get away with so much. But yeah, the height map route is really fun to play around with. A lot of flexibility as well. Okay, Eli, I hope that helps. The rest of your plan looks good though. You got decals, you got trims, you got tilables. Oh, maybe you got like a little sigil here, right? Like the sigil. I would also just sculpt that, like make it like a nice unique sculpt. You could do it as a decal, right? Like I 100% agree that you could do it as a decal. But I think if you really want to go for a quality, just make it like a nice sculpt. Make it like a nice insignia, right? And sculpt it in there. Sculpt. God, I can't write anymore. Cool. Thanks, Eli. Thank you so much. Ryan is always as supportive as ever. Looking nice so far. Cool to see some grass going in since I last saw it. I can't wait for the next updates. Also, lovely little overgrown pieces in that concept. Yeah. Oh, playing around with the grass on this is going to be so fun. But yeah. I do agree with Ryan. It's looking nice. Solid block out and just a nicely picked concept as well. It's going to be good. Let's see. 2 more. Let's start with Anchor, and then we'll, last but not least, we'll talk about Connor as well. Anchor is... There we are. For feedback, how is the roof texture looking right now? I have added 2 of the same screenshots with displacement and without displacement. Okay, cool. I would honestly say straight up, like you don't need displacement. No way. Like from this distance, well, even from this distance, right? Like the difference is barely noticeable. Yeah, we get like a little bit more deformation in like the shadows and all that kind of stuff, right? But I would bet that from a distance that you're not even going to see it. What is more important though is paying attention to the edges of the roof, right? So for example, this plank, I would not do a plank because I would do like roof tiles that kind of stick out like instead. That's the way what I would do it. And just have like one sticking out. Oh, it's gonna look so good. Especially here as well. Have them stick out like that. That's gonna look way better and way more Oh, how can I blend that? Sorry, Eli. We kind of skipped over that. How can you blend like grass? Let me think about that. So maybe let's open a little thing as well. Most of it is kind of the same way that you do in like all the other blending too, right? So for example, if you were to make like a little section like this where it's like a clump of dirt. Oh, the sigil. Oh, you don't blend it, right? You just make it like a separate mesh that sits on top of it. Because that's how sigils work in real life anyway. I don't think I have like a picture here, like on hand really quickly. This is also a good tip, right? Just have a look at like real life references. Don't only rely on like your concept. Have a look at like what the concepts are from, right? Let's see. Where did we go? Not this one. Which day was it? Croatia. I'm just having a quick browse through some of the pictures that I took. Because I remember taking like a bunch of pictures from like sigils and like entrances and all that kind of stuff. Don't know if this is one. No. No sigil. Oh, here we go. This must have a sigil. Yeah, this has like a bunch of sigils. I have a close-up of this. What is that? What did I press? No! No, I don't want freaking store. Let me be. So, talking about sigils. This is how they would be in real life, right? It's just like an additional thing that is added on top of the wall, right? That's how I would approach the same thing. Just have like a separate mesh that sits on top of it. That's the way that I would do it too. That's the way that I would do it. So back to Anchor's work. I would say no displacement. Oh my god, my writing is getting really terrible late at night. No displacement. Focus on the silhouette instead. Focus on that first, because you can tell already by my shitty drawing that I did that the silhouette is going to be like way more impactful than anything else. Same thing that you're doing here, right? I think that was a question as well. The edges of the meshes displacing weirdly, which I have marked in one screenshot. Yeah, we're not doing displacement anymore, so it doesn't matter. I think if you wanted to do that, there's like an option of... there's different ways of displacing. I can't remember the differences anymore. I think one is like GN triangles and like flat triangles or something like that. There's different ways where it doesn't break up the mesh. So that's what I would look into if you are doing displacement. But there's different ways, basically what it comes down to. But again, I would not use displacement and just like focus really on just like the silhouette, right? Like all this stuff, like push it out even more than you have it and make it like look really nice and varied. And like even add like the different ones like on the edges, right? Like really try to break that edge up. Because that's where the juicy bits are at. That's where a lot of love is going to be seen. But yeah, doing stuff like this is going to make a world of difference, especially from like a distance as well, right? Because the silhouette, if you emphasize it a little bit over distance, that's going to be visible still. Whereas displacement is just going to be completely gone. What you could also look into is maybe boosting your normal a little bit so that you get more of that shadow variation that you have. But that's more of like a question mark. I think if you focus on the silhouette, you're gonna get a lot of it already. Okay, number 2 then. Should I give more variation to the floor planks, or is that okay? It's not necessarily about the variation, it's just because there's repetition. The variation is nice, it's just you have to use it a little bit better. Because every 2, there's like a darker plank, right? And repetition is something that is... repetition is like a big warning, right? Like we try to get rid of repetition as much as we can. So yeah, I would say vary this up, right? And then also think about like the way that you can use this texture better. Like even if you like squish a plank, right? You have like a plank that is like, oh, it doesn't actually connect to this side, but it's like it's slightly diagonal. And then maybe this plank has like a curved edge over here, right? And then this plank is normal again, that's fine. And then this plank is kind of like you have it, kind of goes down. You see, by just doing this, we're getting lots more variation than just like having a plank that's like repeated like every 2 planks, right? Think about it in that way. And you don't have to do like any rebaking or anything like that. Just use the geometry that you have with the textures that you have and just add a little bit more geometry so that you can like make it look interesting. So it's not about like you said, right? Like variation, it's about the repetition is the real issue that you have right now. And just adding more geo and also, yeah, getting rid of the repetition, right? Like not having like a darker plank every 2 planks. Have like a couple of dark ones. Maybe you could kind of use this to your advantage as well, right? If you really think about it. Have a couple of dark ones and make them all like rickety and kind of like old, so that you could tell like, oh, the older planks are darker, right? You could kind of turn that into something that you could use to your advantage as well. But I do like how you're setting them off though, even though it's the same kind of offset, right? Although not everywhere. Like this is like a nice little section, right, compared to all the rest of it. So yeah, nice. Just do more varied stuff like that, right? You really gotta put in the love. But yeah, I would say those two are like the big things, right? Like focus on the silhouette, boost the normals by a little bit. You don't want to overdo it either, if you need to. And then for the floor, it's more about the repetition and adding more geometry and making it look like there's actual planks, right? You can do so much cool stuff because you could then like start adding like a plank on top of it as well. That kind of is like fastened like very hastily on top of it for like a broken section, right? You can play around with this stuff and have a lot of fun with it. Thanks so much for sharing your work, Anchor. And then we're moving on to Connor for the last one for today. This was an interesting one because Connor is basically asking about his Yosemite National Park environment that he's doing. And it's mostly about like, how do I get this to look realistic as possible, right? But what I wanted to bring up... Oh, sorry, Anchor. We're gonna. Okay, we'll have a look at it quickly. Please add that in your questions next time, right? Because it kind of breaks up the whole flow. How is the overall texture looking, though? It's looking good. It is looking good. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about like the texturing itself, right? I still feel like the tiles could be smaller, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely way better than last time, I think, right? Let me double check here. Oh, or were they small before? Remember? No, they didn't really change scale, right? Okay, so that's why I still feel like the scale of the tiles could be like smaller as well, but I mean, that's up to you. Want to keep it like that. The important thing here is though, always look at it from like the actual camera distance, right? I know that you're gonna probably do like some detail shots and all that kind of stuff, but also look at it, like verify it from like a distance as well. Yeah, I would say good job on the texturing though. I'd like it. It's just more like the silhouette and like those things, right? Like doing more with your geometry. I don't think your texturing is like anything to be worried about. Okay, moving back to Connor then. What I was saying is that I have these examples here because I wanted to really drive home that like you're going for realistic, but you're taking your main inspiration from like Google Maps, right? Which is probably not like the most interesting interpretation of realism. And that's really what I wanted to bring up here, right? It's like you can make something look really real, but there's like so many interpretations of what is real as well. I'll give another example, right? So there was like a bunch of hype around like games that have like the body cam footage because everyone thought that it was real. But what actually made them feel real was that there was like a lot of skewing on like the edges of the lens, and that made it feel real to people, even though it wasn't real, right? So I know that that is kind of like a meta talk, right? Or like something that you don't really consciously think about, but I would say maybe you're struggling with like making it feel real because you're only focusing on like the realistic interpretation of the camera lens of a Google streetcar, right? Scott is also saying that the colors feel washed out to me. I do like colorful things though, so it could be a personal choice. I think that's just because, so this is the main reference that they're using, right? Even there, like you can kind of tell, right? Like the colors are still like somewhat same-ish, even though there's like the colors have like the leaves have like a different tone and all that stuff. Like that's kind of the vibe that they were going for. But I just have the feeling that maybe that's not what they want to achieve. That's the vibe that I'm getting right now. Let's see. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up, right? And also like how to fix the issue of everything looking a bit fake. That is a good question. I think it's just about like, again, the layering of things, right? Like the thing that we talked about last time as well is if you look at this stuff, like here, for example, right? We're picking like a small section of this entire thing, right? But we have so many things already happening, right? You have the road itself. The road has like discoloration coming from the tires. So you have that. Then you have like some sort of spill at the edge of the road. You have the side of the road, which is not like an equal white line, but it kind of is faded in certain parts. And there's like a misprinted one right next to it as well. Then we have like all the sand like next to it, right? And then if we look at yours, this is what it looks like, right? So that is one of the things that if you wanna make it feel not realistic anymore, you kind of have to purposely introduce like a lot of these like mistakes or like natural occurrences that happen a lot in real life, right? That's also why I keep bringing up like adding character to something, right? Because nothing is ever straight. So as soon as you have like a straight building, it kind of just like crushes the feeling of everything, right? But the same thing still happens here, right? We have like these like harsh transitions where you would expect like blending to happen. Again, the rock placement still, I think, is like very chaotic. Not really thought out at all, right? It's just like random scattered, where normally you would have like, I think we talked about this last time as well, if I'm not mistaken, where you would just have like let's see if I can find a better picture. Yosemite Park view from the road. I think there was like a nice top-down picture as well. Let's have a look. Yeah. Okay, so look at this one over here, right? We're gonna paste it into the whole thing as well. that we can do like a little draw over to. You can see immediately that the rocks have like a purpose, right? It's basically just like dirt accumulating to where the rocks were, so they kind of filled up the gap that was here. Then you have like a slight ridge with like the rocks, and then you kind of have like a dirt slope just going down the whole way, right? So if we then again compare that here, there's something going on here, right? Which I kind of like, but it's just like the rocks don't serve the same purpose because it's just like chaos. What you would kind of want to see is that you kind of have like a rock ridge that is somewhat built around like these cliff areas, right? So that you get like a very natural feel, like a natural clumping of like elements going on, rather than just like this random chaos that we're seeing here. And then at the end of this slope, there's probably going to be no rocks anymore. And then you have like the smaller rocks kind of like gathering here. And then maybe there's going to be like the occasional one, like over here or something, right? Because again, like all this stuff feels like really dead at the moment. So we kind of need to find a way to spice it up as well. But yeah. Try to replicate like this sort of stuff. And this is from the actual location, right? So so structure of nature, right? Like the natural structure of things where you kind of have that ridge and then a slope down, all that kind of stuff. What else is going to be important is also just like blending, right? Just like a lot of like really nice blending, and then also mistakes and chaos on like human made elements, right? Where you can see that like they misprinted like the lines and all that kind of stuff. Those could be like really interesting like little details as well. Let's see. Also looking at like the road itself, right? What we highlighted, there's a lot of repairs going on. Repairs from cracks in the roads. They also add like a lot of like roughness variation too. I think this picture like showcases it like really nicely. Drag it in. Basically only care about that section, really, right? Because all this stuff is just basically things that spice up the environment, right? And like add these little things that could really, yeah, really just add like a little bit of character to the environment, right? There's a lot of stuff here. You could even, let's see. Oh God. This is what I hate about Affinity, just a weird masking. Can I select this? Cannot. Dang it. Whatever. We'll deal with it. Yeah. There's also something to be said about the colors, like Scott is saying, right? I feel like you went for like the most boring version of realism, right? Where if you look at games, for example, like a GTA, right? They make everything like more purposeful and like more realistic, more vibrant and all that stuff because it's more exciting to look at, right? There's actually, interestingly, like a lot of I think it was like an AI interpreted like version, basically looking at GTA as an input and then making it realistic. And what it did, it was basically washing out like all the colors and all that stuff. But I think it was so trained on like, I don't know, like Google Maps footage or like dashcam footage that it was like desaturating it more than it should be compared to us. Oh, Days Gone is actually, yeah, it's actually a great suggestion. So, make it interesting. That's basically what this whole talk comes down to, right? Is that you can make something look realistic if you wanted to, but it doesn't matter if you can't make it interesting as well, right? And that's where like all these things, right? Like the rocks and like the damage on the concrete, all that stuff, if you start adding that, can already like really spice up what you have here, even without like changing the colors, right? So you can make this interesting even with your color grading that you have now, but yeah, you need to add like more and more layers. Yeah. But I think in my opinion, it could definitely be worth looking at something that's a little bit more vibrant, like bring back the color just a little bit. But that's why I'm saying it's personal, right? If you want something that is like really washed out and you want to go for that interpretation of realism, that's fine, right? But then still like the above still applies as well. I think I'll stick to that. It's a focal point, the mountain. Yeah, everything seems to be kind of leading towards the mountain, but I think the hut needs to be, or wanted to be, a focal point as well. But yeah. Currently, it leads all to the mountain, right? Kind of like these shots as well. Just because it's going to be difficult to... I think the hut is more like set dressing at the moment. Agree on the placement, character, and color grade and contrast notes. Not a bad spot to be in. Oh yeah, 100%. 100% agree with that, Ryan. Connor is doing a great job so far. It's just, this is, yeah, the details that matter, right? Lots of assets are looking really nice. Super solid state to polish them from. Looking forward to some updates. Yes, sir. Me too. The trees seems to be a different species. Are they mega scans? I think they are, actually. I think the trees are mega scans. I can't remember though. I don't remember. It doesn't say explicitly, right? I don't know actually. But I think they are. Because I'm using the same ones, I think. Might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Yeah. Could be. But no, great stuff, Connor. If this, yeah, I'm just really keen. I'm just really keen on what you're gonna do with it. I think all the stuff that we brought up is definitely gonna be important, right? Just the structure of things and adding those like man-made like quirks and all that stuff is gonna add a lot to the environment. So, looking forward to the next update. And yeah, thank you so much for posting your work. Don't quote me either. I think I recognize them. I'm gonna screenshot it. Okay, but big shout out to all the people that posted their work. I'm not gonna cut this short because we're basically over time already. I tried to make it like shorter, but I kind of failed miserably, as I always do. It's so nice to talk about art and give people back. Big shout out to all the people that participated this time around. If you want to participate yourself as well, becoming a member and then putting your work up in the Work in Progress channel and adding the Whip Wednesday tag is how you do it. You can become a member on beyondextent.com, so go check that out. We got like a bunch more stuff as well, from resources and workshops, which you can watch here as well. Thanks all for being here. I'm gonna be clocking out, and I'll see you. Oh, sorry, harsh. Let's talk about that. Split screen feedback next week. Let me double check. I think we have portfolio feedback. Portfolio reviews. Yes, next week Tuesday. But I'm not 100% sure on that because we are going to be moving into the new house on the 6th. So it may or may not happen. I'm not sure. So it's probably going to be chaotic. I think if we get internet should normally be set up. Maybe we'll have electricity. I'm not sure. I'll keep you all up to date. Any suggestions for a beginning level artist on how to approach the portfolio and overall suggestions? That's a really broad topic. If you honestly want a lot of portfolio suggestions, go check out like all the other streams that I've done. There's like a bunch of portfolio reviews that I've done up until this point. And I think if you just check a couple of them out, you're gonna see like a red line running through all of them. So yeah, Malik, I would just suggest that you watch those as well. We also have workshops. I think there's one. Oh no, that's more for like technical. That's more for technical artists. So it doesn't. It has some cool stuff that can apply as well. Like one of the workshops basically talks about portfolios as well. Internet cafe portfolio reviews. Oh my god, internet cafes, are those still around? Well, on that note, hopefully I'll see you next Tuesday. But if not, I'll let you know. Have a nice evening all, and see you soon. Keep forgetting this damn button. Still need to add it.